kids. The book, I wrote it without a lot of fluff and extras because I did want it to be entertaining, but I also wanted it to be usable, so it had an impact rather than its message getting lost in hundreds of pages of fluff. But talk about it, and just even if you suspect that somebody isn't, like I would have students that were in this, and sometimes they weren't ready to talk, but just listening and watching, keeping that opportunity for dialogue, maybe making some observations. I wonder, about relationships in general, healthy, because I think the worst thing to do is to start to put down the boyfriend or put down the girlfriend. That is controlling, because boom, then they have to defend them, and they'll shut down.
Yeah.
So just
I want to break in
up
here for just a moment. We have some callers. Quite a few callers are calling into the show, and we want to have an opportunity to see if maybe some of the callers would like to make a comment on such an important topic.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Awesome, yes.
You are live on Storytellers Campfire. Who do we have with us tonight? You're live on Storytellers Campfire. Would you like to make a comment to the author, Tanya J. Peterson, or regarding the topic? Not sure why the sound is not coming through. But continue. Go ahead. Fascinating conversation.
So what were we? Can't remember, but the next question, I was so excited about a caller. What about the abusive person, Brad, now, or anyone who is abusive? What motivates them to act this way? And will they ever change? Are they going to be capable of healthy relationship at some point?
You just asked a question that a lot of researchers are working really hard to answer right now. Sadly, there isn't an answer, a direct answer yet. I tend to think, until proven otherwise, I tend to think that everybody can learn and everybody can change and improve. I don't know, though. There's some real-life situations that seem to indicate otherwise, though. Some people never seem to learn. A lot of it comes from actually... A lot of times it's about the abuser rather than the person, and I think that is really important for people to know, whether it's a young woman or a young man who gets trapped in these toxic, abusive relationships. Sometimes it feels, what is wrong with me? If I were just better, he wouldn't want to hit me. If I were just better, she wouldn't yell at me and berate me all the time. If I did this, and that's not true. It's about the person. They need control. Sometimes, a lot of times, they've been abused themselves. Brad had a horrible, in the book, Losing Elizabeth, Brad had a horrible family background. He had a dad who left and took the brother. He had a mother who was too busy for him, and he felt unwanted. And so he kind of projected that onto everybody else. He was angry about it. He was upset about it. And that's how he approached his life.
Oh, wow.
And I think it would help.
Yeah, if he gotten help, counseling or something to address those issues, he might have been able to later, had changed and see how his behavior was toxic to his relationship. That's why he never could, move on to commitment or whatever.
Right.
At one point in my life, I had a beloved family member who was in a very destructive relationship. They were sad. They had children together. And I could tell the person was sad, unhappy, dissatisfied, and scared at some points in the relationship. This person finally, thankfully, was able to pull out, and not with little emotional distraught,
right.
But they're thriving. The children and the person is thriving, and
good.
Unfortunately, I don't know if the abusive person ever changed.
Right,
but
they don't. I don't think they've changed on their own.
Now.
Mm-hmm.
No,
good. I'm glad that the one got out and the kids got out. That's excellent.
Yeah, and it was difficult for all of them, and they're very close. The person and the family The children are all very close-knit. They have shared apartments and their lives every day, on a daily basis, even though they're older now and, and independent with jobs or whatever. All of them intelligent, and very loving and healthy relationships. So even though it affected them to some degree, I imagine their relationships now with the significant others that they're with are very loving and very nurturing. So
right.
That is very nice to know. This person has inspired me to make sure that I self-examine and be objective about evaluating my past. Well, past relationships are done, but the relationship I am now with my husband should help me, whether evaluate and decide for myself that, something's abusive or mental or physical or whatever, and make you question if there is a problem that you need to talk about it and fix it, or if it's not right, to make sure that person knows and not allow that to go on in your life. Well, we have a little bit of time. Would you have something prepared for us from your book?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
And I am opening that.
Our listeners would enjoy
too,
that very much.
I loved the what you just shared, and and it does give people realistic hope, because if you've been in this relationship like this, you're not doomed forever. You can get out, and that examination is so important. Be aware and honor and communicate. But so in this segment, so I have a segment. It's so into the book. It's about halfway, maybe not quite. And would you just like me to begin reading?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes, go.
On Thursday evening, Elizabeth threw open the front door and ran into the house. She dumped her tennis racket and book bag on the hall table as she ran straight for the kitchen. Mom, oh my gosh, Brad's going to be here any minute, and I don't have time to get ready. Coach Thompson kept us late to prepare for Saturday's meet. I ran all the way home. What are you making for supper? She was still out of breath from her sprint home, so she only managed to get a few words out at a time. After inquiring about dinner, she bent over to catch her breath. For goodness sakes, Elizabeth, slow down. Why on earth didn't you get a ride from Meg? At that, Elizabeth stood up. To avoid looking her mom in the eye, she walked to the fridge to get a glass of water. I think Meg had somewhere she had to be right away. You know how that goes. Anyway, the food smells great. What is it? Roast chicken with vegetables, and I even baked. I made homemade bread and angel food cake for strawberry shortcake. I thought it would be a nice, safe meal, one that anyone would like. What do you think? Sounds good to me. I hope Brad likes it. When she saw that her mom was beginning to look worried, she added, How could he not like it? You're a great cook. Just then the doorbell rang, sending Elizabeth into a panic. Oh no, Brad's here. She grabbed one of her mom's silver pots and used it as a mirror. With great dismay, she groaned, I've never looked worse in my life. Just look at my hair, plastered all over my forehead, my face is red, and I feel sweaty and stinky. Oh, I'm so mad at Coach Thompson. Why did he have to keep us late, tonight of all nights? Elizabeth, her mother responded, you look fine. So what if you're just getting home from tennis practice? Do you think Brad will really care? You should see how guys look after football practice. Now calm down and answer the door. I've got to check supper. Elizabeth left the kitchen and headed back down the hallway. Her tennis shoes were loud on the hardwood floor, and she just knew that Brad could hear her. Great. Not only do I look and smell like a sweaty horse, but I sound like one, too. She forced herself to smile and look relaxed as she opened the door. Hi, Brad. Brad just stared at her for a few moments. Finally, he spoke. Hi. Geez, don't you shower and change after practice? Usually, but I just got home. Thompson let us out late. Now I understand why girls never like anyone to see them after they work out. Yeah, she murmured, embarrassed. I'll take you to the kitchen so you can visit with my mom, and I'll run up and change. It won't take long. No way. I don't know your mom well enough to sit there alone with her. You'll just have to stay like that, I guess. His tone was harsh, and he stared at her with disapproval. Elizabeth knew that her cheeks were bright red. She could feel them burning. Before, though, they had been flushed from her difficult practice and her run home. Now they were hot with embarrassment. Brad, She stopped short when she saw her father walking up the sidewalk. Oh, please let this go well, she thought, as he introduced himself to her boyfriend. She needn't have worried, for the dinner went very well. Brad was as charming to Elizabeth's parents as he usually was to her, complimenting her mother on the meal and showing interest in her father's line of work. Brad politely answered her parents' questions about school, the football team, and his plans for the future. By the end of the dinner, Elizabeth was completely relaxed. Studying her parents' expressions and listening to their comments, she guessed that they approved wholeheartedly of Brad. When her father dismissed them to the family room and informed them that he and her mother would stay out of their way for the rest of the evening, Elizabeth knew that Brad had won them over. When she and Brad entered the family room, Elizabeth plopped down cross-legged on the couch, heaved a sigh of relief, and exclaimed, "Free at last." After pausing, she added, "That went great, don't you think?" Brad remained standing. "Great?" he asked sarcastically. "Don't you think so? If you consider getting grilled about everything under the sun great, then I guess it did. But frankly, I was getting sick of the third degree." "What do you mean?" "Come on, Elizabeth. Don't tell me you didn't notice. All they did during the entire meal was question me. I'm surprised they didn't fingerprint me for a background check with the FBI." Elizabeth didn't want him to think her parents didn't approve of him. She was afraid he might decide that she just wasn't worth the hassle and find a girlfriend with less interfering parents. "Oh, no, Brad. They weren't trying to give you a third degree." She bit her lip and looked down at her socks. At that, Brad walked over and sat beside her on the couch. He reached over, put his hand under her chin, and gently turned her head so she was looking at him. "Hey, don't feel bad. It's not your fault your parents are so controlling. Look, I can handle them. Wasn't I great at dinner tonight?" She couldn't argue with that. She nodded, and Brad continued, "I'm just afraid that I won't measure up to their expectations. I hate it when people question me like that because I always seem to fall short of what they want. I guess I'm worried, too, because I figured if my own father doesn't want me, why should yours? I'd die if your parents decided that you couldn't see me anymore." She was completely overwhelmed by his sweetness. She moved closer to him and leaned against him. "Brad, that won't happen. I wouldn't let it anyway. I care about you, and I'm going to continue to see you no matter what anyone says, including my parents."
Wow. Yeah, he's a piece of work, isn't he?
Yes. And so you've got that. He goes from being controlling and being angry to being kind and then manipulating her with, "Oh, I die without you," and just back and forth. And it's confusing and overwhelming.
Yeah. You should have heard me when I was reading this book. My husband, like, "What are you reading? Why are you reading that stuff?" It's because it's homework, and it's great. I am talking and fussing about this book and wanting to crawl through the book and smack that boy around. I'm telling you. I was so mad. I remember when I was going clubbing at some point in my life when I was younger, and guys were manhandling their ladies, and I'm like, "Excuse me, ma'am, did you need some help?" And they're looking at me like, "Who are you? Your worst nightmare, buddy. Back it off.
Yep.
Leave her alone. Don't do it in my presence because, I might not be able to kick your butt, and she might not be able to. Together, I'll tell you what, we can do it, okay?"
Right.
And
oh, my gosh.
And it's so disrespectful and not so treating ladies like they should, and I just don't tolerate it. I never have. Never have.
There's no reason. I mean, to treat people with such disrespect and such control and, verbal, physical, whatever, abuse, it's awful.
There's no excuse for it. So
there isn't.
Now, can you share with our listeners your websites, media sites, and blog information?
Absolutely. So my website is probably the best place to find information about me, my books, links to the column that I write, and it is just my name. It's www.Tanya, Tanya, Peterson, Peterson.com. And that has the links to the social media. I've got a couple of Facebook pages. One is facebook.com/Tanya J. Peterson, and one is facebook.com/Tanya J. Peterson NCC. The NCC is for National Certified Counselor. And Twitter, I'm at Tanya J. Peterson 1. I said, and all those links are on my website as well. As well as information about this book and the other books.
Several places. Awesome. Well, we're running out of time, but we wanted to share one last thing with our listeners. Why this book, Losing Elizabeth, was so deserving.